is this really all a bloody bout?
Check 1, 2.
What is this really all a bloody bout?
That is the question. Even all about. What is this really, really, even really, really all about? What is this even really, even really, even all about? What this is even really, truly all about? Can you tell me truly, really, even what this is all about? Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it's pretty much the end of August, and we haven't come live and direct with a podcast or a flyby or a flowcast or any of the likes in a decent amount of time. And for that, we just want to say, hey, baby, we've been living. It's been summer, and we truly hope that you, too, have been out there living it up, loving life, enjoying all of this beautiful sunshine, beautiful humidity, beautiful warmth that we have been experiencing here in Canada, thanks to the geoengineering. So, Adam, since we're talking about the summer, why don't you let us know what your highlight has been?
My highlight? I don't know if I had a specific highlight, but
you mean the mothership just landed last weekend and that wasn't a highlight for you?
Yeah, it was a highlight for sure. And that's what I was going to touch upon. It was our dome warming party after, this is, I guess, the 4th year. So it's been 3 years since we've broke ground at the dome. And we bought a piece of land for $7,000 and transformed that 1 acre of land in the middle of nowhere into a dome paradise. We have built a fully off-grid geodesic dome that is pretty decked out, has nice hardwood floors, it has walls, it has an upper level, it has a kitchen, it has AC, it has water, it has all these things, and all these things were, you know, it wasn't the easiest thing to do. I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing I've done in my life. I'd have to say it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but I knew that it was necessary to do this because of what we're going through in the world. And I believe everybody should have some sort of getaway outside of the city. And if you've heard us talk before, it's like we believe we shouldn't even really be living in the city. You're in the heart of Babylon, and there's a lot of crazy technology going on now that you're leading yourself into a trap, or you're being led into a trap. So the people that continue to live in the city and do nothing, well, you're going to be screwed at some point very soon. So this is why we built the dome, is so we wouldn't be caught in a rock and a hard place, that we would have somewhere to go. And we can live in it if we choose to if we wish to. But for now, we live a bit there, we live a bit here, we live a bit everywhere. But last weekend, we had finished the final touches on there. We went set up our little festival stage of lights and lasers, and wrapped the dome in LEDs, and we just had a beautiful, amazing time with people that came out. We just danced and sat by the fire and just had a really good time. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was. It was really amazing, and it was nice to just gather on the land in sort of like a phase where it felt like complete, like a loop had been finally closed, and now we could kind of just like circle up together as friends and as family and sing, "We are circling together. We are singing our heart song. This is family. This is unity. This is celebration. This is sacred." And that's what it was. It felt very sacred, actually, to just be there with friends and family who love us and who supported us in that journey, and many of whom had their hand to the plow along there with us to make that dream become a reality. So it was really beautiful to celebrate. And that had been a highlight for me as well this summer. And so, like I said, it's been a while since we had a podcast. And so I just wanted to kind of like get on here and just maybe give kind of like a bit of an update in regards to where we're at and what's been going on and kind of what we are looking forward to in regards to the next kind of series that we're going to work on here on the Creative Revolution broadcast. So earlier on in the series, not in the series, just earlier on in the podcast, maybe the first or second episode, we did a big talk about sovereignty. As sovereignty is an inherent part of our being, it is encoded into our DNA. And for me, especially, walking that out and living that out as a woman of God is very important for me. It is very important that I submit to none but Christ and Christ alone. And so I had mentioned in numerous podcasts kind of like some of the ways in which one could liberate themselves from the government. We also did kind of share and talk about our story in regards to our land, which we just celebrated, and how we emancipated it. And I shared about how I gave up my driver's license, and I, for the past 3 years, have been traveling in my car without a driver's license. And so I wanted to share just a little bit kind of about this part of my journey, because things have gotten a little bit crunchy, and it's real. Like, I found myself now like in the thick of everything I have prepared myself for. So I would say middle of the summer, Adam bought himself a birthday present. Do you want to tell him about it?
Yes. So we had a Jeep. It was a 2015 Jeep, a more modern vehicle, and it was nothing but problems. And we were like, everything is wrong about this vehicle. Let's get rid of it. So we got rid of it, and I had my eye looking at some retro cars. Toyota Supra, 1986, 1987. And then I found out about the Nissan 300 ZX, a Z31, called the Fair Lady, or that's the nickname for it, the Fair Lady. And so I found one for a good deal, and it's amazing. I love it, and it's
super cute.
A total relic. Everybody thinks it's a DeLorean, and people are always stopping and taking pictures of the car and talking to me, which I don't always like, but sometimes, it's fun because they like the car. So this is what I got, and it made me feel better.
But there was something that I thought was super annoying in the process. So, like, when you're buying a vehicle in Ontario, you basically have to like get this used vehicle package. You have to have the vehicle like safetied. You have to have the vehicle appraised. And then you got to take all of this stuff down to Service Ontario, where they register the vehicle, and then they also make you pay taxes on the purchase of a used vehicle. And so they make you pay taxes on like the sale price, so whatever you purchased it for, but then they also make you pay taxes on the appraisal price. So what the vehicle is appraised at, you have to pay taxes on.
Regardless of what you actually paid.
So when Adam came home and he's telling me this, I was just like very inspired to push back. I was very inspired to challenge this ridiculousness.
Yeah, because they charged me double. I only paid a certain amount for the car, and they charged me tax on double because that's what the appraisal said. Even though that's not what I paid. And you can't do nothing about it. They're just there, and the people working there, they just look all blank-eyed, be like, oh, it's what the computer says. Sorry. sorry, buddy. And so you really can't argue. You can't do nothing. It's just what you have to do. You got to pay it.
Yeah. So I was like, this is redonkulous. Like, I'm just sick and tired of the government just like dipping their hands into our pockets
in absolutely every way they possibly can.
Man.
In ridiculous, unheard of methods.
Like, what is even, like, I can't even truly, like, in my rational mind or even in an irrational state, I can't find this type of taxation justifiable.
No, they'll tax anything and everything. You're buying like a used watch from like 1960. They want the tax on it. If they'll take the tax. They'll tax an item.
They'll tax a child's lemonade stand. Okay.
Oh yeah, even garage sales here and where we live, La Pêche, you have to get a permit, otherwise they're gonna fine you like thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So
like it's ridiculous.
All that to say, I was just like, you know what? I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling inspired to kick things up a notch here. I've been walking this path for a while. I know some things. I think I'm ready to kind of start like shaking a tail feather, so to speak. So what I did is I went onto the old internet and I was like, you know what I'm going to find me a little cheap car. I'm going to find me a little cheap car and I'm going to friggin' buy it and I'm going to unregister it. So I found myself a little cheap car and it was the cutest. No, it still is the cutest little car. It's a Volkswagen. It's white. It's a cabrio. It's 1994. I absolutely love it. And like, you know what? I used to wonder to myself, why are people riding around in convertibles? Gets your hair all messed up, like the sun is beating down or whatever. But once you have a convertible, baby, I tell you, you understand why people ride around in convertibles. It is so fun to just have like the sky wide open over your head, the sun beating down, your hair whipping in your face, blocking your vision, swerving off the road, trying not to die. It's exhilarating, friends. It's exhilarating. If you ever have the opportunity to buy yourself a convertible, go and do it, because that's what I did and I'm loving every minute of it. So I bought this car. And I was like, oh, heck yeah. And I prepared a bunch of documentation to basically unregister the car, to declare that this car is private property, that it is going to be traveled in by a sovereign woman who does not have a contract with the government, the federal, provincial, municipal, any of that, no contract. And I also put it into a private trust. And so I took all my documentation along with the private bill of sale down to Service Ontario. And I'm like, hi, I would like to unregister this vehicle. And anyways, it was a very interesting experience there because obviously the main minions they have at the window do not comprehend what you're talking about. So I was like, yo, could you just get a manager? And so that manager came over. He also did not know what I was talking about. I was like, okay, is there anybody here today who is kind of like overseeing absolutely everything, like the mega manager, the top of the top? Is he or she in today? And they're like, oh, yes, actually he is. So he comes over. And it wasn't until I got chatting with that guy that all truth became apparent. And so it was in that conversation that it was made clear to me that unregistering a vehicle in the system of vehicle registration is actually literally impossible. The system only exists to continue registering forward and forward and forward. And so even when I was asking, like, well, is there any way that you can just delete this car from the system? They're like, absolutely not. Like, the program doesn't function in that way. And I was like, okay, well, based on the conversation that we're having here today and your comprehension of what it is I'm trying to do, what do you suggest I do? And he said, well, basically your best bet is to get some license plates from out of province or out of country. That way you're cruising around.
They actually said that to you?
Yeah, that way you're cruising around and like for the most part, nothing's going to happen. You know, if and when you end up getting pulled over, you know, you're going to likely have to go through the rigmarole anyway because you are traveling without a license. Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what the guy was saying to me. And I was like, okay, very interesting. And so even in that conversation too, the manager did admit that no driver's license was required unless I was participating in commerce on the roadways. And so I was like, heck yeah, that's very cool that at least somebody does somewhere know the realities of all these things. So anyways, all that to say, I ended up leaving that place with the car unregistered, or sorry, still registered, but not registered into my name. So what I have done from that point forward is I created like a little packet, little info packet, so that if and when I was to get pulled over roadside in the cabrio, I have a bunch of documentation that I can share with the man or woman who is dressed in uniform, who is there to engage with me in conversation, or harass me, that I could go through the motions. So anyways, all that to be said, that was that. So fast forward to middle of the summer, we're having a great time. We live on the Gatineau. We're doing a summer river float with a friend. It's her birthday. And so we all drive. Some people are driving because they have license and they're doing their things. But I travel in the cabrio, pack some girls in it, and we get to the spot and we park. And we go to this spot all the time. We know where there is a no parking sign. And that is absolutely 100% not where we parked. But when we get back from the river float to pick up our cars, there's a ticket on my car.
And I had seen some guy in a boat pulling a boat in, and I knew he just wasn't happy. We're all kind of there. I was unloading stuff and everything. And then I saw the police come, and I knew that he had called the police. But, it doesn't make any sense because we weren't even parked where the no parking sign was. So I had a parking ticket on the cabrio, and I opened my car doors, and I noticed that on the seat there's like some screws, and I really thought nothing of it. I was like, oh, that's super weird that there's like screws on the seat now. Anyways, whatever. I put the top down, I get in the car, and I travel on my way back home. When I pull in to the driveway, Adam's like, hey, were you just like cruising in the car without license plates? I was like, what are you talking about? I get out and I look, and there are no license plates on the car anymore. So the front plates are gone and the rear plates are gone. And then I clue in. I was like, oh, they took my plates, and that's what those screws are for. And I was like, that is so unhinged. That is so weird. That the police officers gave me a ticket, then obviously realized in the process of doing that these plates were not registered to that vehicle, and they took the plates. I was like, that's crazy. So anyways, forget about it. The next day, early morning, knock, knock, knock on the door. I look outside. I see a police car in the driveway, and Adam's like, does it look like some fat lady who eats a lot of McDonald's? I was like, what? He's like, that's the officer. She's the one who was ticketing everybody. And I look a little closer. I was like, I guess so. Yeah, I guess. Anyways, long story short, she's knocking. She's there for an absurdly long amount of time knocking on the door. Like, nothing better to do except sit outside our house.
Yeah, like 9 a.m. So it's like totally crazy. I obviously don't answer the door. Friends, family, children, everybody. You do not have to talk to the police.
If they come knock on your door, just don't answer it.
100% do not answer the door.
Unless they have a warrant for you, you don't have to say nothing.
You always can exercise your right to remain silent. So anyways, we didn't answer the door. We wait for her to go back into her police mobile, and she pulls across the street and parks facing our house in the parking lot across the street. And I was like, you know what, bro? Like, it doesn't matter. Let's go. Grab the camera. I'm ready for this, but I need to get a coffee. And so we walk out the front door and we walk to Blue Barn. No interception, no nothing. We have a nice morning. We end up walking back home. And as we're getting back home, we see our friend is in the front lawn, like kind of like packing up her water gear. And the cop is in the driveway too. And I was like, okay, whatever. And so as we approach the driveway, getting closer and closer to home, the cop just like pulls out and drives away. And so we're like, yo, what was that all about? And then our friend was like, yeah. She's like, that cop was demanding that I knock on the door, or that I call you, or that I go into your house to wake you up and to get you and bring you to her. And Heidi's like, oh, that was my friend, sorry. She's like, there's absolutely no way I'm doing that for you, Miss Cop Lady. Heck no. So anyways, long story short, the cop threatened and said, hey, you better tell your friends that if they don't call me today, I'm going to charge them or something stupid.
Ticket us.
Ticket us for not
they're gonna do anyways.
Yeah.
That's all they want to do. They just throw it a bunch of tickets. And this is the thing about, especially the Gatineau police and the Quebec police. They are just looking to ticket you for anything and everything. Even if it's wrong and they're wrong, they don't care. They say, oh, let the courts sort it out. So they're just going to go ticket you even when it's not even warranted. And they're just going to let the courts sort it out. So there's messing with your life. Because that's what they do. They have nothing better to do than make up tickets, write tickets, just make up all these charges.
Yeah, they're a little bit much.
Yeah, like she also got a ticket for not locking her door.
So listen to this. So this is the crazy part. So then finally Adam that day is like, okay, calls the lady down at the Gatineau police at the Wakefield cop shop. And she says to him, oh, there's a problem with your car. And Adam's like, well, it's actually not my car. And she says to him, well, I have proof that it is. And Adam says to her, oh, really? What is that proof? She says, I went to the original owner and I got copies of the bill of sale that say you are the purchaser. And I was like, oh, well, isn't that funny now? Because I'm right here at home looking at that documentation, the bill of sale that has my name on it. Absolutely not Adam's name on it in any way, shape, or form. So Adam says to her, oh, is that the case? Well, would you be able to drop that off here at my house? I need to see that. She says, absolutely not. Everything that I have will be submitted to the courts. And we're like, oh, that's very interesting, miss. Very interesting. So what we do is we hang up the phone and I put together a little info packet for this lady and we march on down there and I let her know a thing or two about what's really going on. And I submit to her a sworn affidavit. I submit to her also a statement declaring that I am the purchaser and saying that, hey, lady, you actually said that you had documentation, that you had this and that regarding this man. So, like, you're basically lying. And this is what you said. So give us the proof. And so all of this stuff I dropped off in flesh and blood. Adam recorded it. And we have photocopies of all of it. So this is the thing, friends and family, if you're listening and you are also interested in walking the sovereign path. When it comes to anything that you are doing, any challenge that you decide to embark upon, you need to document absolutely everything because you have to remember that your enemy, his main tactic is fear. And so he's going to do anything and everything he can to get you scared. But the reality is that if you have all your ducks in a row and that you stand strong and secure in who you really are as a strong, sovereign man or woman, they can't get you, okay? If you have no fear and you know the facts, you know the truth sets you free, you walk in that freedom, is nothing to fear. There are no worries. But make sure that you document absolutely everything. So that's it. That's all. And then what comes in the mail a couple days later via Purelator is 3 tickets. One, she's issuing me the ticket again for the parking. She issued me a ticket for having the doors unlocked. And she issued me a ticket for driving with an unregistered vehicle. And I was like, well, that's actually not true because nobody was driving that vehicle when you gave it a ticket. So,
and it's funny, and there's no names on the ticket. Like, it's really weird. Like,
yeah.
These people, they don't even seem like they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
like,
it's so very interesting because the tickets weren't made out to any name. However, they sent the mail via Purelator with my name on it to my address. So I was like, what is even going on here? So anyways, I basically sent the tickets in. I did not plead guilty or not guilty. I sent the tickets back in. I returned them saying that I don't have a contract. And
because this is the reality. She doesn't have a contract with any issuing authority for licenses, so they can't put any fines on her license because she doesn't have one.
Yeah. So there's no contract there. So none of these fines will actually have any ill effect on me. However, once I started looking a little bit more deeply into like the laws in Quebec, it turns out that Quebec operates under their own statutory law versus civil law or commercial law or
statutory.
Yeah, so they've created their own statutory laws, and basically the reason why I believe that they have done this is because they are one of the only provinces that have like the deeper comprehension of the reality of what Canada truly is.
Just a corporation.
Exactly, which is a corporation. So something that is a major takeaway from that is that they've just mobilized and they've just created and they're doing their own thing. So essentially, in a way, they're operating like a micronation. And we all remember back in the day when Quebec wanted to separate from Canada, right? Well, they're not stupid. Like, that's the thing, is like the government here in Quebec is not stupid. They know things, but the trouble is that they are evil just like the rest. There's not like they're wanting to separate or become a micronation because they have like these really good intentions for their citizens and that they want sovereignty and like their own economic freedom and whatnot. No.
They just want more control for themselves.
Absolutely. So that's the trouble. So that's a very interesting takeaway and point in all of this, is that they are doing their own thing essentially here under the umbrella corporation of Canada. And so the reality is that we, friends and family, also have the ability to do that. But the reality is that in order to do that, we need to organize and we need to mobilize. There needs to be more of us who begin to get together and say, you know what? Yes, let's create a board. Let's create a governance structure. Let's create a sheriff's department. Let's create all these things to mimic the society in order to take care of one another.
It's not mimicking. This is the true society. What they've built is fiction. You know, it's contracts based on fiction and your straw man.
Yeah.
You know?
So all that to say, that was phase one, and I was like, "Wow, this is interesting," you know. But and it didn't. It just none of this even really bothers me. This section, but then actually, it was about a week and a half ago now. I had to go to Golden Lake. We had a work retreat, and I had to head up there. And so I get up that day, and I interestingly had like this check in my spirit: don't go. Don't get in your car and go to Golden Lake today. I was like, that's weird. I'm ignoring it because it's a big day. I got to do these things. I get in the car. I'm mighty frazzled and I'm cruising and I'm really feeling super not grounded. Like I'm not even really feeling like I'm in my body. I'm feeling like I am just really like in my head, very airy, not paying attention, just kind of like going through motions. And I'm flying down the highway. Now, the thing is that when you are a sovereign woman cruising in a car without a license, you want to be mindful of the road signs. Why? Because you don't want to draw attention to yourself. You don't want an interaction with the state. This is not something that you're calling out for, because an interaction with the state is going to be very energetically draining. So I am always paying attention to where I'm at. I'm always paying attention to the speed limits, and I'm always trying to stay within them. But like I said, this day, I was just flying down the road. I had no clue where I was or what was going on or how fast I was going. And all of a sudden, I fly by a cop. He whips around, puts his cherries on, and pulls up behind me. And I was like, okay, here we go. This is it. This is the moment I have been training for 3 years. It is happening now. So I pull over, and the guy rolls up to my side window, to the driver's side window. I'm on the highway. Okay, I'm on a backcountry highway. It's a fairly busy highway that has a lot of transport trucks, big farm vehicles. It's not like a small little pitsy highway. So he comes up to my window. I roll it down only partially, and I say, "Hey, how can I help you?" And he said, "Did you know that you were speeding?" I said, "Oh, speeding." He said, "Yeah. Do you have a driver's license and registration?" And I said, "Actually, can you define what a driver is?" And he was like, well, it's somebody who is driving. And I was like, okay, but like, what can you define driving? He's like, it's somebody who is driving a car. And I was like, okay,
Guy obviously knows nothing.
I know. I was like, okay. However, I am actually none of that. I am a woman and I'm traveling. He said, no, you were driving. I said, but I'm actually like a woman traveling. And so I'm in this car and I am traveling in it from point A to point B. I'm not operating this car for commercial purposes. So I don't have a driver's license because I don't have a contract, because I'm not engaging in commerce. And he says, I caught you on camera. I have a video of you driving. And I was like, sir, like we've already established that like I'm not driving. Like you explained the quote unquote definition of driving, and I told you that I actually wasn't doing that, that I'm traveling. Anyways, the guy was getting a little bit flustered, and he's like, I need to go back to my car and think about it. Like, okay, you do.
Is that what he said?
Yes. I'm like, okay, you do that. I'll be right here. So he goes back to his car, and then this time he comes back on the other side, on the driver's side. And so I rolled down my window a little bit, and I was like, yeah. He's like, well, what kind of ID do you have? I was like, I have a passport that actually grants me the right to travel. It says that anybody who is bearing the passport has the right to pass freely. So that is what I have. And he said, give it to me. And I said, no, I will not give it to you. I will show it to you. And so I hold up my passport. He reaches both of his hands in through the crack in the window, and he grabs my passport with both hands, and he starts pulling it towards the crack, pulling it with force. I'm hanging on to it, and I said, sir, please let go. Let go. This is my private property. He's like, I need to take it to my car. I'm like, you do not have permission to take this to your car. This is my private property. Please let go. He's pulling. I'm like, sir, you need to let go. You need to let go, sir. Please let go of my private property. This is my passport. I am not giving it to you. You do not have permission. Finally, he lets go, and he just looks at it with his eyes. And then he says, do you have registration? Do you have insurance? I said, my husband does. Yes. And anyways, long story short, he ends up going back to his car again. And then he comes back to the window. And this time when he comes back to the window, he's got his clip off his gun and he's got his hand on it. And he approaches the window and he says, I'm going to need you to give me the keys to your car. And I said, why? Like, what are the grounds?
Do you think at that point there is something that you said or did that granted him jurisdiction?
Absolutely not. No jurisdiction was ever granted. Also, there was no escalation. The entire time that we were in communication, I was calm, I was cool, I was walking the path of peace. He was the one who was getting frustrated. He tried to take my private property out of my car, which was uncalled for. He was beginning to get a little bit agitated. And I remained very neutral, very calm, very cool the whole entire time. I was pleasant, I was peaceful. Anyways, and also no jurisdiction. So anyways, he comes up with the clip off, hand on the thing. He says, I'm going to need you to give me the keys to the car. And I said, why? I said, is there an injured party here? Like, is there a reason? What are the grounds for you needing me to give you the keys to my private property? He said, because you were driving without a license. And I said, sir, we already established that you have no jurisdiction because I am a sovereign woman traveling, that I wasn't driving. He's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, if you don't give me the keys right now, I'm going to criminally charge you with impeding an officer. And I said, under no circumstance have I even at any point during this identified you as an officer. And also something that was really interesting is when I was questioning him, I was asking him, I said, do you understand? And he said, I understand. And so I was like, bro, like the reality is that in this situation, I have jurisdiction over you because you said you understand me. And so anyways, there was no point for me to get involved in like starting to get into the semantics with this guy because he clearly knew nothing. But the long and short of it is that when he asked me for my keys, I said no. Or I didn't even say no. I just asked more questions because the reality is that when you are engaging in things like this with the state, you cannot be aggressive and you cannot be like yes or no. What you have to do is you always have to be asking questions. So that's why I said, on what grounds are you asking me to give you the keys to my car? Why are you asking me to do this? He said, if you don't, I'm going to charge you criminally. And I said, and what happens? Okay, so you charge me criminally, and then what happens if I still don't give you the keys to my car? He said, I'm going to remove you from this car by force. And I said, wow, that is so interesting. You are going to remove a small, tiny woman from a car by force because I'm not going to give you the keys because you believe that you have jurisdiction over me when in reality you don't. I was like, okay, oh my goodness gracious. I said, I need a moment to think about this for a minute. So I took time and I said to myself, what am I going to do here, Julie G? Like, this guy is obviously not budging. He obviously doesn't comprehend anything I say, even though he understands me. He doesn't comprehend what's going on. The reality is that I could, A, get hurt in this situation. He could physically harm me. He could destroy part of our private property, this car that is ours. He could break the window or smash or do something because he's going to remove me by force. He already has his clip off his gun and his hand on the gun. There is a chance he could shoot me again, back to being injured. And or also he could charge me criminally. Now, when I weigh the options of like the types of charges and things that I have the ability to deal with, long term and short term, I'm like, traffic tickets are nothing. Like, they hold no weight in the large scheme of things. Whereas a criminal charge could cause me some trouble when it comes to me crossing the border. And I want to cross the border because winter's coming and I can't stay in Canada. So I was like, you know what? Okay. I said, bro, I'm going to give you these keys. I'm going to give you the keys to this car, but it's under duress. And here you go. So he takes the keys. He calls the tow truck. And the tow truck driver comes and puts the car up on the back. They say I cannot take anything from the car. So I get out with just my bare essentials, which was my fanny pack, my water bottle, and my backpack. And they leave me on the side of the highway and drive away.
Now just think about that for a second. This wasn't the way it's always been. When people were driving without a license or traveling without a license in the past, they just tell you you can't drive anymore. They don't take your car because it's always been like a whole freedom issue here. This is a right that the government doesn't have the right just to take your car. But now we see that everything's shifting and no one's doing nothing about it. They're just seizing your car for anything. Oh, are you going 50 over? Even if we got it wrong, well, we're just seizing your car. And like we've had our car seized over a parking ticket. Now you think that's how would that be serving the people? How would that be serving the public at all when we're leaving people stranded at the side of the road? That's what's happening here. People have not forgotten to pay a parking ticket in Quebec, and they're driving through on like Christmas Eve, going to visit the family out east. This is a true story. And they seize the car at the side of the highway and leave the whole family at Tim Hortons on a holiday.
Yeah, and so the very interesting thing is that, okay, like Adam was saying, like this is the second time having our car seized. The first time was also equally as ridiculous, and I do believe that Adam shared about it in one of the earlier podcasts. But yeah, so they seized our vehicle over a parking ticket. But then we have shared numerous times, just in conversation and even on this podcast, what Adam just shared there about the people traveling out east and them leaving the whole family at Tim Hortons. And then this also, it became very real because it happened to me. Like a woman. I am literally in the middle, like I am on a highway. I'm in the Pontiac, okay? I am like 45 minutes away from home and still an hour away from where I need to be. I am in the middle of nowhere, dropped off on the side of the road because they stole my private property. They took it away from me with threats of harm to my body, my physical body, harm to my vehicle, and a threat of a criminal charge.
And just think about this: if we hired these people to, in theory, to run a country for us or run services and all these things, like, did we ever vote? Did we ever say, yeah, this is what we want you to do? Just take people's property and screw people and leave them at the side of the road? Like, no, absolutely not. It's this: they've decided that they want to do that, and they're fascists. That's what they are.
It's completely unhinged because the reality is that
how are people not rising up under this type of oppression? Why are people not fighting back? Like, it's disgusting.
And so, like, these quote unquote police officers swore an oath to serve and protect the people. But what is happening now, the grand shift that has taken place, is that they are serving and protecting the state.
They're policy enforcers, just enforcing the corporation's policy.
Absolutely. And so myself, I'm not having that. And so what was very interesting, some of my major takeaways from this encounter was that, and I said it earlier in this podcast, is that he came at me when he realized that I didn't have what he was asking for and I was not going to back down. He came at me with fear. He backed me into a corner, and the only tactic he had was a fear tactic. Because like I said, when I'm analyzing these things in my mind, I'm like, he could hurt me or he could charge me criminally. These are bad things. These are things that I don't necessarily feel like dealing with on the side of the road here today. You know what I mean? I don't feel like my whole day, it's a beautiful summer day. I don't feel like going to the hospital because this man shot me or because he physically harmed me trying to get me out of the car. Like, you know what I mean? And so the only tactic he had to come at me with was fear, and that is despicable. As a human-to-human interaction, it is despicable that he treated another fellow human being in that way. And so for me, coming out of that, at first, man, I was mad. I was so angry. I was just like, bah, these people, who do they think they are? Like Adam is saying right now, like it is disgusting. Like we, the people, we never voted for that. We never said that that's the way we want these types of situations to be handled. You know, I felt victimized, you know, all these things. But then as time went on and as I spent some time in the Word of God and I spent some time seeking his face and asking God, like, how am I going to move? How do you want me to navigate through this? What should I do? Should I just give up? Should I like go get a driver's license? Should I do all these things? God's like, absolutely freaking not. You submit to me. I am the king. You submit to the king and the king alone. You're going to walk this path. You're going to walk it all the way to the very end. And you're going to have the victory. Why? Because we are victorious in Christ Jesus. And we need people like you to make the path illuminated for those who are going to come after you.
And this is why we're doing this. We're doing this because we want to test the system. We want to make a point. We want to make a way for other people. Now, in the whole walk of sovereignty, you got to use wisdom and discernment, when to hold them and when to fold them. Because I've seen people in these forums and we're part of, they're like, oh, I can't believe the cops. I told them I was traveling and they took my vehicle and I can't believe it. And now I'm screwed. Well, did you not do any research of like what happens? Like we were expecting that something like this would happen.
This is why we have 5 cars.
Yeah, this is why we have more than one vehicle, because we know that this could be the reality. And I know that I've kept all my plates up to date and everything, because it is a big inconvenience. If you're like a single mom and you have a kid that needs, you know, medical attention, you got to drive them back and forth to the hospital and to school and all these things, and you have one car, and it may not be a good idea to try and travel without a license. Not at this point, because you're going to trailblaze a path where there's a high risk. Like it's not the best idea. It doesn't mean you're just because you have a license doesn't mean you're not sovereign. Right? We're forced into many of these contracts because of what they're doing. And what they're doing is wrong. They're not right, and it's not over, because we're going to be taking them to court. We're going to be suing them. We're going to be doing whatever we can. And so they know if they pull us over and try and take our vehicle, there's going to be consequences.
Absolutely. So that's the reality. So like at the end of the day, the way I am going to move forward with this is that I'm going to move forward with this all the way. I am not backing down, and I am challenging the system. So for me, the way that I use my words, the way that I move forward in this is all very, very poignant and important. So I'm not fighting. I'm not here to fight. I don't have it in me to fight. I'm also not in it to resist, because I'm more than resistance. I'm here to challenge. Mano y mano. I'm here to challenge as human beings face to face. Each and every one. From prosecutor, police officer, to the judge, whatever. We are human beings. We are all flesh and blood. And I'm here to challenge this system of unrighteousness, because that is what it is. It is completely unrighteous. This world system is created by Lucifer, who is our enemy, and his goal is to kill and destroy. And I do not submit to that in any way, shape, or form. I submit to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He is a Lord of light and a Lord of life and a Lord of peace. And so I'm walking that path, and I'm going to go all the way. So the reality is that first and foremost, I'm going to have to go on this lower level provincial court system. And in this provincial court system, you know, I'm not going to win. Especially,
what do you have to go to court for? Because you don't need to even turn up for those tickets, because you don't even have your name on it.
Well, I'm talking about this one with the driving and the this, that, without a license. They've got my name. Those tickets have my name on them.
Yeah, but you don't even need to turn up for court unless they summon you or try and arrest you or something like that.
So that's the interesting thing too about like this whole system is that as long as there's like a communication flow, a positive communication flow, there's no need for court. And so that is one of the main reasons why you have to look at the tickets and whatever it says, if it says you need to respond within 15 days, 30 days, whatever, you need to do that. And so that's what I've been doing. Okay. So, and the beautiful thing about Quebec too is that they give you 30 days. So that's like a good chunk of time to get your research on, to get your ducks in a row, to talk to people, to come up with a strategy, and then begin to send letters, to begin to get into the communication process with them. So as long as you are in communication and it's positive communication, you're not saying no, you're not getting aggressive in any way, they actually can't bring you to court. So that's what I'm doing. I'm engaging in the conversation. I'm sending the letters. I'm doing the things. But what my point is that if and when court becomes a reality, I will go and provincial court, boom, nothing's going to fly there. Okay. Because it's low level.
What are they even going to try and do? They're going to try and get you to pay or
That's
whatever?
That's what they'll try to get you to pay. They'll try to get me to plead guilty and try to just get my money.
And
that's
all you got to do is stand there and say, what is this court for? Is it for corporations, corporate fictions, or for human beings? Because I'm a human being.
Exactly.
And challenge them.
Exactly.
Challenge jurisdiction right away and don't let them trick you into jurisdiction.
Exactly. So I would do that. Then the next thing is to go through the federal court system. And again, you show up in your sovereignty. You show up as flesh and blood. You never show up as the straw man that they're summoning. You show up in your strength, in your power, in your purpose, in your light. Okay? Federal court, boom. Doesn't matter what happens there. Likely won't win. However, the minute you get to Supreme Court, it is there that they honor God's law, and it is there that they know the truth, and it is there that you win. And that's the most beautiful thing, is that it's the highest level of court system. And when you're there and you show up in your flesh and blood and your spirit and your truth and your life and you win, that is liberation, baby. And every time I talk about it, I get goosebumps. I get goosebumps because elevating my frequency to the highest frequency of love and undefinable light is what I live for, man. I live for this. And so I am so excited. So it's like so beautiful how it's like when life hands you lemons, you literally make lemonade. And you know what lemonade is? It is refreshing and it is full of electrolytes and it enlivens your cells. And when your cells are vibrating and they are alive, you are alive. And that has how we become miraculous healing beings, okay? So like long story short is God is good. Life is good. Living the life in the freedom, reality of the kingdom is good, and we just want to celebrate life and life abundant, and we just say all of these things to you, listener, to inspire and encourage you that if you don't know God, get to know God, because he's going to free your soul and all fear will dissolve, because that is what Jesus does. Amen. Amen.